Pick Me Up is a mobile game with the goal of reaching the 100th floor of the tower by powering up your heroes and using strategy and tactics to clear the tower. Heroes have from 1 star to 7 stars, but our protagonist Han Seo-jin is a guy with terrible luck. Despite thousands of paid gacha pulls, he has never gotten a hero over 5 stars. So upon seeing a special event that has a chance of dropping an item that can make 7 stars, he joins. He sends out a recon team because Pick Me Up has some hardcore rules where if your heroes die even once, they cannot be revived. Han Seo-jin's entire party immediately feel fear before a shadowy figure at level 999 kills them all. Thinking it's a bug, he gets shocked when the menacing boss stares at him through the screen as he blacks out. Seeing system notifications of an account creation, he tries to answer, but the system ignores him and enters someone else's answers. Entering a tutorial, the system explains the backstory of Han Islat as our protagonist finds himself in a destroyed small town up in flames. Quickly accepting this absurd reality, he begins fighting the invading goblins to complete the tutorial quest. Clearing the stage, Han levels up and is transported to a familiar scene from Pick Me Up. Before he can grasp the situation, the system begins a high-rank summon, and the 4-star hero Shay materializes before him as Han questions if he too was summoned. With the system's advice, the master of this account, Anything, places the two in a party and sends them into dungeon after dungeon, leaving Shay to hard carry Han as the gap in skill and stats is just too overwhelming. With only the final tutorial stage left, a way to enhance heroes called Synthesis is unlocked, and the master decides to synthesize his 2 heroes. Hesitating to enter, a fairy who manages the system appears to force him inside, but Han calls her a cell, shocking her. She comes to realize that he doesn't look like Han Islat and comes from Earth, but still forces him inside. Synthesis enhances heroes by combining them, sacrificing one to enhance the other. Panicking because a normal player has 0 reason to kill off Shay, a 4-star, and leave himself a 1-star, he prepares for death. But Shay ends up getting sacrificed, saying, "I'll leave it to you," with a gentle smile before turning into light. Han thanks his luck at the stupid master's misclick since it's a drag and drop feature. Time passes and we see Han introducing himself to a group of strangers, claiming to be a clueless farmer named Han Islat. As the confused group discuss what's happening, Cell appears and tells them the master has opened a crack in time and space, so they should get ready to fight. The group begins to argue with Cell, and a 2-star hero amongst the group charges towards her but gets cut down. As everyone shrinks in fear, she states anyone who touches her will die. The master forms a party of 5 heroes, but before they can be sent in, Han convinces Cell they should be given weapons as compensation for killing a powerful 2-star hero. She sends a tip to the master through the system, and the master summons some weapons. Noticing his collected nature, Han catches the eye of the 1-star hero Jenna, who grew up in a remote forest, and asks him a bunch of questions. The first party of 5 is sent into the gate with a series of system messages appearing moments later, announcing their return to the goddess's embrace. With party 1 annihilated, a new party is formed of the 5 left, and they enter the gate. Arriving in a temple-like place, they are then sent into the main dungeon or the first floor. On the first floor, they are surrounded by goblins, and the system tells them their mission is to kill all the goblins. Telling the others to fight or else they'll die, Han curses, seeing 3 of the party members fleeing in terror. All party members except Han enter a state of fear. Stopped by an invisible wall, they realize they are trapped in this battlefield. Han calls them pathetic, but gathering herself, Jenna asks Han if they stand a chance whilst the others claw at the invisible wall. Jenna says her dad was a hunter, so she knows how to use a bow, and Han tells her to shoot arrows at them as he fights up front and to ignore the others. Han has never wielded a sword or shield, but steels himself and engages in a bloody battle with the goblins. In the middle of the battle, Han gets attacked from behind and thinks about the level 999 bugged monster that dragged him here. Declaring it messed with the wrong person, he counterattacks with fury, completing the mission and leveling up whilst earning MVP. The game has almost no player control with combat, since the heroes do the combat automatically, but the reason the game has 1 million downloads is because you get to view the world like a god, whilst crafting items using strategy and tactics and hero ascension. Han Seo-jin was one of these players and was called the Master of Masters, 5th ranked player, Loki. Back in the base, he completely accepts that he was summoned as a 1-star hero from birth and decides if he is to survive and not be compounded or die in battle, he must train as hard as possible to make up for a 1-star's pathetic stats and low growth rate. Seeing his intense training, Jenna approaches him and decides to train alongside him, saying she won't be a burden. Looking at her stats, Han determines that she has potential and mental toughness and decides to help her. With a handshake, the system states Jenna feels goodwill toward him, and they receive an intimacy bonus that gives them bonus stats when in a party with another hero. Han then calls out to his cell, and she appears in a huff. She says that she won't be telling him anything and that if he wants answers, he should climb the tower. Ignoring her, he asks if he is the only one who can see the stats window above her head, and deduces from her reactions that he is the only one who can see the game messages and Master's forged messages. He then asks what happens if the Master quits, to which she replies, "Just pray he doesn't." Asking if the time here is different to Earth, Estelle angrily replies that she won't answer him, but reading her again, he determines time is different here and thanks her. Despite her rage, she can only interfere in self-defense and when the Master's orders are disobeyed. Jenna wonders what they are talking about, and Han explains that they have to clear 100 floors of the tower and must complete the orders and missions the Master gives them, and that the Master can summon other people as well, ultimately leaving their lives in the hands of Master. After completing a day of training, Han discovers some rules about this world. Daily needs and food are refilled the next day, and if you imagine something you would like to have, it appears in a drawer or closet, but guns and similar things don't work. He also notices that training doesn't increase stats or level, instead it refines skill learning and skills in general. After 3 days of training, Master logged back in which time Han had got 2 skills, low rank swordsmanship and low rank shield techniques. The Master summons 3 new heroes, all 1-stars, and Jenna tells them to get ready to fight as she and Han grab their weapons. Not listening to Jenna's words, Estelle forces the newbies inside the gate, and they arrive on floor 2 with the goal of killing all enemies. The 3 newbies immediately get feared, and even Jenna gets affected, but with a prod in the side from Han, she resists her fear. Telling Jenna to take the goblins, Han runs forward and stabs a wolf, but it doesn't die in one strike because his weapon is shit. Even so, he finishes it off before another charges him, biting down on his shield. Forcing it back, he then slashes its neck, killing it. Turning to check on the goblins, he finds them looking like hedgehogs, thanks to Jenna's arrows. Clearing the stage, Jenna levels up and Han is named MVP. Arriving back in the base, the party is about to be sent straight to the 3rd floor, but to Han's relief, the Master logs off. Han figures out that time flows 3 times faster than this world, so next time they can log in should be in 3 days. Now level 6, Han's intelligence decreased 1, but in return strength increased by 2, with a total of 4 gained stats from the level up. He notes his leveling efficiency has increased, so his physique must have improved. Watching the newbies yell at Jenna, he notes that 1-stars are commoners and disposable, whilst 2-stars are mercenaries with some fighting experience, and high-ranking heroes are different and start fighting right away, making Han wonder if they know why they are summoned, thinking that Shay would have known based on her behavior. Telling the others they don't need to fight next time, and just he and Jenna will. One of them grabs Han by the collar, but Han punches him in the face and states that they were doing nothing while he and Jenna were bleeding. Walking off, Jenna giggles at Han's actions, and the two go back to training, with Han leveling his 2 skills to level 2, but the 3 others never showed up, opting to look for an escape. While sparring, one of Jenna's arrows hit Han in the leg, worrying her, but he reassures her not to, as all injuries in this place are restored, unlike the real world. Earning a new skill, pain tolerance, he and Jenna continue their grueling training, and Han's sword and shield skills combine to form basic sword shield techniques, level 3. With the Master's return, Jenna and Han prepare themselves, whilst Estelle has to force the 3 into the gate once more. On floor 3, their goal is to subjugate all enemies, and taking the lead, Han charges forward with Jenna backing him up from range. Easily clearing the stage, Jenna levels up and gets MVP. With the two sharing thoughts on the fight and the others, he notes it doesn't matter since he doesn't want to share XP with those bastards. Following a tip from the system, the Master makes them repeat some of the floors, tiring the pair out as they do all the fighting. Annoyed at the 3's lack of action, the Master opens the synthesis feature. You see, even though small events happen outside the screen, it's not like the Master is totally unaware of it. The Master can see who's fighting in front and contributing and who's being lazy. Favoriting Jenna and Han, the Master sends Jenna and Elson into the synthesis center, but Elson begins to panic and pleads to Han. However, he just coldly stares at him and tells him even if he couldn't fight, things would be different if he had just tried, and that they're sick of cleaning up after them. Forced inside, he gets compounded, and Jenna exits the center with a level up and new skill, Eagle Eye. Confused at what happened, Han explains that in this place, useless people get sacrificed, and faces the remaining 2 2 saying it will be his turn next. Wonder who it will be. Exiting the center, Han levels up and gains the skill Composure and tells the remaining guy, Aaron, he got lucky. Realizing she could end up like that if she becomes useless, Jenna becomes anxious, and Han tells her that as they climb, they'll either die in battle or get sacrificed, and she should follow her father's words and stand on the right side. The next day in the training ground, Jenna bows to Han and reaffirms her desire to be on his side, declaring, I'll be in your care, and Han replies, you won't die as long as you do what's required, so don't worry. Then Aaron also appears and begs for Han's help, apologizing for how he acted. Han tells him that he also didn't know how to fight when he arrived, but he's determined to fight to survive. Throwing him a spear, he tells him that it's one of the easiest weapons to use, and now their 3-man party consists of a melee, mid, and long range, giving them perfect balance. Ordering him to fight him, Han charges at him and pressures him with his sword, before kicking him in the gut, making him throw up. Jenna asks if he's going too hard, but Han replies he won't take on any burdens. Questioning whether Aaron has family, he then asks him what would happen if he didn't go back, telling him if he doesn't have the desire to survive, it's better to get synthesized than killed by monsters, and not to start something he can't finish. Staring each other in the eyes, Han smirks and says he likes to look in Aaron's eyes. Seeing anything build a blacksmith's forge, Han calls out to Cell and asks if she can use the internet, and she replies she can, as it's her hobby after all. Noting the tips that she used were probably from the strategy forum, he then recites the tip in its entirety. She questions how he knows it, and Han says it was posted by Loki. Cell reveals that she is a massive Loki fan and thinks he'd be rank 1 if he had a 7-star hero, explaining that he is someone who makes the impossible possible. Continuing to ramble on about Loki, Han interrupts her saying he feels sorry for her, which grabs her attention, before revealing with a smile that he is Loki. After telling Cell he's Loki, she attempts to brush him off, but he brings up his pick-me-up account number, only known by the player and the server managers. Checking the system, she confirms that he's Loki and asks for his autograph, in the hopes of becoming a top member of Loki's fan club. She then asks what will happen to Niflheim without him. Niflheim is the name of the lounge in Han's account. With a capacity of 20,000 and high-level buildings, it's an endgame base. She wonders what will happen to his troops, but as a mid-level admin, she can't do anything. Han then brings up the fact that anything is from Earth, and the heroes being summoned aren't AIs, with Isao adding that their origin world is different, but they are humans. So players are unaware that heroes are living humans, and just make choices like it's a game, making the heroes face all sorts of danger. He asks her if he can go back to Earth if he reaches the 100th floor, and who brought him here, but she can't answer. Asking more questions, he finds out the other Masters lounges are a bit different, but the base is the same, meaning there are 1 million worlds just like this. A system thought to have infinite content thanks to quantum AI was actually 1 million separate worlds full of real people. Han thinks of the consequences of his careless choices as a player, and how they may have been death sentences for others. Observing Jenna and Aaron sparring, Han notes that she is a genius and has grown at an abnormal speed for a 1-star. On the other hand, Aaron is sluggish and might die if this keeps up. Jenna easily bests Aaron and boasts to Han, but he says not to get cocky. With Isao appearing to distance the two, Han gets her to open the storage for him and grabs a cart full of materials. From their talk earlier, he found out he's half master, half hero, and as such, he can go places only the master can go. Han enters the forge and selects an extreme hell difficulty puzzle as the minigame for masters that gives some spicy rewards to counteract all the penalties on the low-level forge with no blacksmith. Completing the near impossible puzzle, he crafts a well-forged longsword, C- rank, to the admiration of Isao. Speeding through a few more puzzles, Han creates C-ranked weapons for himself, Jenna, and Aaron, and says they must only be C-ranked because the materials were bad. On the 4th floor, they pull out their new weapons as they face the enemies they need to eliminate. Facing monsters for the first time, Aaron starts flailing about and falls into fear, so Jenna slaps him in the face, and Han says not to make a fool of himself as he charges the goblins. Working together, they clear the stage, Aaron levels up, and Han gets MVP. Arriving back in the base, Aaron worries that he didn't do enough, but the master adds him to favorites and he yells in triumph. Jenna says to Han that now both his number 1 and 2 subordinates are a success, but Han thinks that technically his number 1 subordinate would be Niflheim's Cyrus. Thinking about his level 99 6 stars that he personally created, he wonders if he will run into them in the tower. On the outskirts of Niflheim, the 6-star hero Yernef sees off Cyrus, who is setting off to investigate the disappearance of their master, leaving Niflheim to Yernef in her absence. Seeing Master go on an upgrading spree, Jenna and Aaron look around in awe. wondering how this is possible. Han says that anything must be an office worker based on their set online time and his ability to spend money, with Hisao adding that it's better than a broke student. Pick Me Up is a game that only has a few ways to get gems for free, so a user who spends is good. Breaking his line of thought, anything begins 10 summonings. As the confused summons come out, Han tells them to quiet down and that he'll only explain things to those that survive. Isao asks them if there are any carpenters, blacksmiths, or cooks, and gives out the non-combat jobs since there are many facilities now, then sending the rest into the first stage to filter out the useless ones. After seeing one party get annihilated, Aaron steps in to protect the next, and Han convinces Isao to let him join, but tells Aaron not to set a precedent. Jenna jokes about looking forward to eating something other than potatoes, but freezes at Han's mention of the god watching them, before saying not to worry as he knows that players only see a filtered version of their conversations. Arriving back with a full party, Aaron reports that he only killed one goblin, and Han approves. In the upgraded dining room, the three excitedly await some new food, but the new cook serves a bowl of cold potatoes, claiming they were condiments, but these were the only ingredients. Seeing his ineptitude, Han checks his stats and sees he doesn't even have a cooking skill. Searching the others, he tells a woman named Chloe that she'll be doing the cooking from now, and she whips up a myriad of potato dishes, impressing Jenna with a variety of tastes. Han explains the situation and how to survive to the newbies, and tells them to pass on this information to other newbies that come. He also notes that whilst non-combat jobs have higher survival chances, they can't rest easy since they could get replaced by more skilled summons and end up with a combat job. Despite his advice, only 3 newbies, Jeed, Hansen, and Dika, show up at the training field the next day. Jenna's archery skill reaches level 5 and her dagger skill reaches level 2, and Aaron's spear skill reaches level 2, but he hasn't gained any new skills. A few days later, 10 new heroes get summoned with the free summoning, and only one dies in the thinning process. Talking about the new arrivals, Jenna asks Han why they aren't moving up to the 5th floor, and he says the Party 1 members haven't been selected yet, and thinks about how difficulty jumps every 5 stages like a boss stage, and even he is unsure of his survival. On floor 4, Han stands to the back, barking orders in order to allow the others to get some formation practice. They clear the stage with Jenna getting MVP and Jeed and Hansen leveling up. Han notes that the master is spending more time offline, and in the second temple they gained a blacksmith and tanner, who began equipment production with the carpenter, though they mostly create E- rank swords and shields. But for the main party, they received the highest rank equipment. The next day, Party 1, filled out by Jeed and Hansen, are sent to the 5th floor, but looking around they find an empty city and no monsters inside. Taking command, Han tells Jenna to climb a clock tower to get a grasp of the situation. At the top of the tower, she sees a horde of thousands of goblins approaching the city. Calming the others, Han tells them that their mission this time is survival, not subjugation. He checks the building, but it's blocked by the system, so they can't hide, so Han decides to change locations. He informs them once the goblins appear, they'll need to survive for 10 minutes or 30 minutes for the master due to the time difference. The chances of a party surviving a survival mission from past floors is only 9%, and with no good buildings around to make a stand, they set up at a narrow passageway so they don't get overwhelmed. Han decides that he'll take the left, Aaron the right, and Jeed and Hansen will take the back together, and Jenna will be on standby in the middle, adding that she should only shoot when he says. They try to build barricades, but before they can complete them, the first goblins appear. Han deals with the first, and with more coming, he tells the others to use their bodies as barricades as they fight back against the horde. Noticing Jeed's stamina, he orders him to switch with Hansen, annoyed at his low level and techniques as he wasted too much strength when one slash was enough. Internally repeating stab, slash, and stab again, Han mechanically slaughters the endless wave before once again ordering the two to switch. Seeing that spot's the most dangerous, he orders Jenna to help them and to collect the arrows she shoots. Finally joining the action, Jenna quickly gets to work as a nervous Aaron asks about the time again, and Han replies that only 5 minutes have passed. Then Jeed screams in agony as he loses an arm. Hansen tries to aid him, but Han orders him to switch, saying not to care for him and to stop the goblins. Han yells at Jeed, chiding him to snap out of his panic, then orders Jenna to stop his bleeding. Continuing their hectic defense, Hansen yells out that his sword is blunt, so Han tells him to switch with the one-handed Jeed, telling them to use their shield if the sword doesn't work, as he bashes the goblin's face. Next, he gets Jenna to switch with Aaron for 10 seconds, allowing Aaron to catch his breath. Controlling the entire battle, he continues to give out orders, ultimately telling Jenna to use all her arrows to help Jeed and Hansen, but tanking 2 of her arrows, one goblin breaks through, driving his dagger through Jeed just before Jenna can finish it off. In shock, he coughs up blood, falling to the ground on the brink of death. Jenna kneels at his side, paralyzed in thought, not sure what to do, whilst the overwhelmed Hansen asks for a switch, unaware of Jeed's state. Seeing this, Han grabs the spear of a goblin, shoving it back, clogging his lane long enough for him to switch places with Hansen. With Jeed returning to the goddess's embrace, Han orders Jenna to get up and help him deal with his side. In the midst of the intense melee, they slaughter goblin after goblin, resulting in their souls being awakened from their limits being tested, but Han is unable to appreciate the boost in skill levels since they're on the edge of falling apart. Howling in pain, Hansen gets injured and begins bleeding out, begging Han to save him from the encroaching horde, but watching his final death throes through gritted teeth, Han doesn't go to his aid. Steeling himself, he orders Jenna and Aaron to stick by him, telling the startled pair to grieve when they make it out alive. With only 3 people left, he tells Jenna to climb the wall behind them, saying they'll follow right after. Atop the wall, she tells them to come up. Han leaps up himself, but out of breath, Aaron is slow to respond, and before Jenna can pull him up, a goblin pins his leg to the wall with its blade, forcing Han to jump back down, killing the goblin and freeing his leg, before getting back up. Up top, Aaron's leg leaves him out of commission, and before Han and Jenna can catch their breath, the goblins begin scaling the wall, climbing atop each other. With nowhere to run, they stab down from above, but completely overrun, the goblins reach the top, and Han yells for them to hold on, saying there's only 30 seconds left and to trust him. Surrounded, Han desperately fights off the goblins as he gets stabbed and slashed, screaming in agony. On his knees, encircled by the ravenous goblins, Han wonders if he is really dying here on the 5th floor, thinking why he must deal with all these troubles. He asks why, over and over again. He then unleashes his burning rage, screaming curses with a violent crimson aura swelling around him. Denying the possibility of dying in this place, he begins massacring the surrounding goblins, leaving them in pieces, and demands them to bring it on with a ferocious glare in his enraged state from his newly awakened skill, Berserk. Han finds it hard to breathe with every fiber in his body screaming, but still he refuses to fall and continues his onslaught, slashing through goblins like butter. His sword breaks and the goblins take the chance to rush him, but in his berserk state, he charges back, refusing to stop. Before he collides with the wave, the time hits 0 and the goblins freeze, inches away from him and the others. The stage is cleared and they all level up, with Han earning MVP. Returning to a waiting room, Jenna slumps in exhaustion, laughing as she cries tears of joy. Han and Jenna then speak about what happened, with Han bringing up how it'd be easier if they had a proper party, to which she replies she knows, before looking sullen, thinking of their losses. Arriving back in the base, Dika joyfully approaches, telling them that Chloe has prepared some good food, asking about Jeed and Hansen, to which Han simply says they died, stunning Dika and those nearby as the 3 somberly head to the dining hall. After suffering the loss of 2 party members, Han flops into his bed, completely exhausted. Han realizes that he unlocked the skill Berserk, confused at how it coexists with his composure skill, since they have contradictory effects. He thinks it must be due to him being half master, but drained from his battle, he chooses not to think about anything, at least for today. The next day at the training ground, Jenna arrives earlier than usual, motivated by the desire not to die. Watching her train, Han again notes Jenna's talent and hard work, and the comparatively average Aaron, who still hasn't gained any new skills despite his immense efforts. Han himself has a fixed growth rate of 5, equal to that of normal 3 stars, and is currently level 9, close to the max level for 1 stars of 10, primed to be promoted to a 2 star. Interrupting his thoughts, Jenna rests her hand on Han's chiseled body, saying it looks nice, surprising him at her ability to get over what happened yesterday, whilst Aaron hasn't come out since, as he was close to the 2 that died. Aaron then arrives, apologizing for his weakness, but Han says he did nothing wrong, and they died because they were weak. That's all. Appearing with her nose to the sky, Estelle heaps praise on Han for clearing the 5th floor and admonishes the randoms for their uselessness. Then, the master forms a party of Han, Jenna, and 3 others who they've never met before. Entering the daily dungeon, Kendo at Forest, lowest rank, Han lightens the mood and explains to Jenna and the others that they don't need to fight, and this place is to gather material. He shows them a portal-like system, the dimension window, to store things they get, before telling Jenna that they will be hunting, walking off with her trailing behind. Spotting a deer, Jenna's eyes flash in joy, and she hunts it with one shot. As the daughter of a hunter, she quickly gets to butchering her prize, with Han telling her to put all of it in the dimension window, walking off to start his own hunt. With only 30 minutes left before they automatically return, Han comes across his mark, the Queen of the Forest, a rare monster that drops a low rank attribute stone that is used as a promotion material. Getting to work, Han officially hunts the male deer accompanying the queen, provoking its anger as he faces it full of confidence. Draped in blood, Han returns to the others, with the head of the queen over his shoulder. Helping him out, Jenna stores the queen's blood in the dimension window and reports her haul. Dismantling the queen's head, Jenna awakens yet another skill, Hunter of the Forest, and Han thinks that she should find promotion easy as he looks upon the low-rank wind's elemental stone. After a hearty feast, Han calls on Jenna to follow him. Daily Dungeons is a system that rotates daily, 3 dungeons with different biomes where you can earn other elemental stones. Entering the Simio Plateau, Han explains the point of gathering elemental stones to Jenna as they overlook the vast scenery before them. The two set off, beginning their hunt, working together to take down a massive wolf monster that dropped a water elemental stone. Jenna happily dismantles the beast for its materials, saying she'd love if it'd always be like this, and that she hopes the master never comes back, which makes Han wonder about Niflheim and what they thought of him, asking Jenna if she doesn't want to fight and that she could take a different path, but she returns the question, leaving Han with a relieved chuckle. A few days later, Party 1, now with Dika, enter the 6th floor with the uncommon mission of exploration, which makes Aaron nervous at the lack of enemies like the 5th floor. Han tells him to be quiet and the others to get down, saying they can pass safely if they satisfy the requirements. Scouting from a tree, Jenna spots a goblin village in the distance and a camp of goblins near them. Noticing the trap, Han prepares an assassination-style ambush, with Jenna sniping from afar as Aaron and Han rush the rest, cutting them down before they can call for help. With the hit successful, they clear the stage with ease, but not satisfied, Han decides to take a look around before he is automatically returned. He thinks there is more to the exploration mission and wants to find a hint to help them in the next stage. Rushing in, he comes across the goblin village and scouts it from a crack in the wall. Arriving back, Chloe comes running over, urgently telling Han of the arrival of some strange people who were summoned with weapons, with Han thinking the high-rank heroes have finally arrived. Speaking to his cell, he finds out the master bought a newbie package and must have used the gems to do some high-rank summons. He then tells Chloe that she'll be fine and they're just a bit special, dismissing the party as he heads off. Spotting a new girl leaning against a wall, Jenna introduces herself, and the startled woman introduces herself as Edis Callan. She is a 3-star hero who already has a class as a thief and a few skills, primarily a dagger user. Pulling her aside to talk, Han begins questioning her about what she remembers. She knows she was summoned to fight, but gets headaches trying to remember her past. She only knows she was in the Pulverizing Wolves mercenaries. Not only is she a 3-star, but she seems to be one of the more skilled among the mercenary group. Jenna flatters her merc life, and hearing this, she seems unsettled. But before they can continue, Estelle calls on the new summons for the Master. The Master forms a new party named Pulverizing Wolves, made completely of 3 stars from the merc group, with Avant named the party leader. Han calmly observes the unrest of the others at the new party as Estelle orders them into the gate. In their absence, Han asks Jenna's opinion, and she concludes that Edis looks kind, but she's unsure of the rest. Han then turns to the others and asks if they want him to protect them, before cutting off their response, bringing up their lack of effort in getting stronger and constant leeching off their hard work, telling them to get lost before he gets angry. Seeing Aaron's expression, he tells them not to pity them, before noticing Dika's battered face. Finding out that it's from a duel, he tells them to go get rest, but Jenna stays behind, feigning ignorance with a whistle. Exiting the gate after clearing a stage, the new party demeans the enemies they faced inside. Noticing Han, the leader, Avant stares him down, asking who he is, and Han cheekily replies it's none of his business, triggering his party members at Han's arrogance. But Jenna refutes, saying they spoke casually first. They then introduced themselves, with Han stating he was a farmer, and so was most of the others, to Avant's disgust. The Master then begins 10 normal summons, and upon seeing another lot of useless people, Estelle orders a few people into the synthesis center. They try to argue, but the brood of the mercs grabs 2 of them, dragging them into the center. He then exits, glowing from a level up. At Jenna's disgust, Han thinks how anything is making a mistake, as he isn't checking his 1-star skills before compounding them. More names get called, and witnessing the panic, Avant orders his gang to stop them, turning to the still Edis, questioning her position, forcing her to join in. Han decides to step in, getting Estelle to send the master a tip, which incites the rage of the Merc Bruiser again. And with Han agitating further, the Brood attacks in a rage, but is stopped by Jenna's arrow. Now Avant is also heated, and even elbows Edis when she tries to settle things down, aiming his sword at a smiling Han, asking, "Do you know who we are?" And Han replies, "Trash," with a playful arrogance, earning him the hostility of the Pulverizing Wolves team. Provoking them further, he exposes them as a thief troop, and Avant gives a final warning, threatening to cut him in half. Informing Estelle that nasty heroes only get in the way, he opens a duel, challenging Avant, stating the winner will consume the other. Confident in his victory, Avant accepts. Han tells Jenna to take the others to the accommodations, and at her worry, jokingly asks, "Do you think I'll lose?" with a stretch, reassuring her. With anything improving the duel, Han states the duel will end when one of them surrender. He tells Estelle to make sure no one else gets involved, but in the midst of their exchange, Avant charges him, calling him a fool. Viewing his stats window, Han appreciates Avant's potential, but in his berserk state, the difference in level is simply too big, and Han unleashes his raging aura. Appearing behind him, Han quickly disarms him, slamming his head into the ground. He then unsheathes his sword, driving it into Avant's back as he screams. Leaning to his ear, he tells him to surrender, but cuts him off, kneeing his blade still in Avant's back. One of the wolves tells Han to stop, but he brings up their eagerness to consume the others, saying as long as no one says anything, he'll continue, telling them to mind their business. Breaking them down further, he asks Edis if they can really call themselves mercenaries, and she ashamedly admits they used to be, with Han finishing, "But now you're just a thief troop, backstabbing those that hire you." He asks why she's with them, and she says because of her father, but Han cuts her off, asking if she wants to be trashed like them or will come over to his side. The other members are enraged that she's considering it, saying she knows the price traders have to pay. Taking a breath, she resolves herself and goes to Han's side, telling the rest to get lost. Trying to surrender, Han reminds Avant that he'll be consumed if he does, messing with him further as he continues crushing his head into the ground. Seeing their leader out of options, the rest of the wolves rush Han, and Estelle steps in to stop them, but they threaten her as well. Turning serious, Estelle ruthlessly dispatches of them. Utterly defeated, Avant surrenders, and Han dispels berserk mode. Watching the result, anything spans the screen, trying to cancel it, but what's done is done, and Han levels up, also leveling 2 of his skills. Entering a building, the others greet Han with smiles and shock, and he tugs Jenna's cheek for telling them what happened. The others try to suck up to him, but he remains cold, saying the only people he saved were the newbies, not those who have been lazing around. He then says the master seems pretty furious with a smirk, and several names get called. Realizing it's for synthesis, they panic and ask why, but Han bluntly confronts them, asking Aaron and Dika if they were really trying whilst they were training in bodies of sweat, or if they ever helped Jenna with hunting. Begging for survival, they plead to the master, but Estelle gets fed up and sends them in the center. Inside the center, all 6 are used to boost the only new high summon left, Edis, and she levels up and gains the skill Trap Disarm. Turning to those remaining, he tells them not to piggyback on their work, and that if they want to survive, to prove their worth. Han tells those with non-combat jobs to teach anyone who wants to learn, saying they'll learn somehow if they're motivated enough, and to come to him for fighting and Jenna for hunting. Almost at the 10th floor, Han notes that it's time a real second party on par with the main party is formed. The next day, Han finds Chloe and a woman in the dining hall with some bread. Chloe tells him that the woman was a baker, and Han praises them since having a variety of foods reduces stress in the base. Exiting, he runs into Edis and takes her with him to the training center. Once there, she gets her and Jenna to spar together, even though Jenna mains a bow. Both sparring with daggers, Edis is shocked at the strength of someone so young, with Jenna replying that she's old enough as the spar intensifies. On the floor, Edis asks if they both had some form of fighting history, but Jenna informs her that they only became stronger after training here, and Han adds that though she is weaker now, she has skills and growth stats that are far better than them as 1-stars, so she'll catch up if she trains and doesn't slack off. At the training field, there's an influx in people, but Han thinks it's still too few since there are only 2 non-combat spots per facility, so many trying for those spots will wind up useless if they can't fight. Han approaches a dark-haired guy who showed good posture and asks what he did before coming here. He replies that he was a porter, but after Han compliments his ability considering that, he adds he did want to become a mercenary, and Han smirks, saying he'll see if he has the potential to. That evening, the master began weeding out the newbies, but even though Aaron took part, he wasn't chosen to level up, with the dark-haired guy named Usher being boosted to level 3 instead. At dawn, Han called the main fighters to the training field and asked them why he called them out here. Thinking for a moment, Dika answers first, saying, to decide the party members? Jenna thought only the master could decide that, but Han says he can put up suggestions and the master probably won't reject them. He explains that they'll split into 2 parties, 3 per party, with himself and Edis as leaders. Edis wonders why her instead of Jenna, but he instantly replies she can't do it, to Jenna's annoyance. Han explains further that they're doing this to prevent an event where they lose all their strength at once and to increase growth efficiency, adding that the master will sort out the remaining members. You see, the higher up you go, the more parties you'll need for missions, with some special missions even needing hundreds of heroes, so it's important to have similar leveled heroes. Pulling lots, Jenna and Aaron get Han, to Jenna's joy, and Dika and Usher get Edis, their reactions leaving her underwhelmed. Noticing the difference in strength in parties, he tells Edis that they'll be left behind if they can't catch up. She accepts the challenge, saying they won't lose. On floor 7, Han's party face a squad of level 8 goblins. Han tells Jenna and Aaron to stand back and observe, activating his berserk form and massacring all but one goblin so he can explore the stage. Scouting around, he takes note of the rain, river, and a broken dam before clearing the stage. Back in the base, Han notices anything to make their 3rd purchase and tells Aaron to bring Edis and Jenna to grab the lots, stating that they'll be newcomers as the master starts 2 high-rank summons. Seeing anything's high recent spending, Han isn't surprised, thinking how there's no way the tactics, PvP, upgrades, and control over heroes' lives wouldn't be fun. With a ding, the 2 3-star high-rank summons, a woman named Ioka and a man named Roderick, walk out, anxiously speaking to each other. As the woman goes to answer, she trips on her dress, blushing in embarrassment on the floor, whilst Edis informs Han that she must be an aristocrat, seeing her clothes. Han learns that the man was a guard in a big city and was aware of the master, summons, and synthesis, but not levels or skills. He informs the 2 that he and Edis will draw lots to split into their parties, with Han thinking the veteran guard is the superior choice to the immature aristocrat. Han gets Jenna to bring the lots, and as she approaches, both leaders spy the color of the lots, thinking it will be speed to decide who gets their choice. They both reach for Roderick's lot when they suddenly feel a burst of heat behind them and grab the other. Both holding the lot, Han asks Ioka if she's a magician, and she displays a fireball above her palm as an introduction. Edis and Han argue over the lot, unwilling to give up on the rare character that only has a low chance to appear. Ioka asks what they're doing, feeling weird at the situation, and Jenna, noticing both leaders cheated, remixes the lots. Slow to catch on, Roderick tells Ioka to think harder, and finally clocking on, she covers her mouth in repulsion at her fate being decided by others. Picking lots fairly the 2nd time, Han reveals his lot and tells Ioka she's in his party, sending an invite. With the parties decided, Isel starts dragging people into the synthesis center to boost the newcomers. Han tells them to enter unless they want to end up like them, and the 2 enter and level up. Isel opens the crack in time and space to test the newbies, and as Edis's party leaves, Han asks Ioka about her magic. She instead argues about why she's here, and Han snaps her to reality, saying she must fight or end up like those she just consumed, before repeating his first question with a fierce glare. Discussing her magic, Han finds out that she can only use fire magic and has no support magic, which he thinks is unfortunate, but a mage is a mage and she is very confident in her fire magic. Edis's party return, looking satisfied, and Han tells his party, let's go. Waiting to enter a gate, Han thinks they'll be sent to the 4th floor as a test and tells Ioka she'll be fighting alone, bringing up her prior confidence in her magic. Unnerved, she says her magic is a bit special, before nervously saying, but they'll be surprised when they see it. As the gate is activated, Isel gives Han an apologetic goodbye as Party 1 gets sent to the 8th floor, shocking the 3 core members. Seeing an arrow speeding toward Ioka, Han pulls her head down, scolding her cluelessness. Their mission is to subjugate 27 level 9 goblin raiders, and with the charging cavalry approaching, he tells Jenna to shoot arrows. Forming up, he starts giving commands, but with raiders upon them, a melee breaks out, with Han and Aaron working together to dodge, block, and strike back at the raiders. Under pressure, he orders Ioko to cast, but she's frozen. He yells at her in action and she replies she needs a minute to cast. Han tells her to just cast, slicing up another raider that charged him, and she begins chanting her spell. He gets Aaron to block the bolts aimed at Jenna so she can shoot back, and moves to block a team of raiders heading for Ioko mid-cast. Unable to stop them all, he tries to tell her to use a barrier, but at her unresponsiveness, he realizes that not only can she not cast barriers, but she is also completely immobile whilst casting, as the raiders collapse upon her. Fighting tooth and nail with a goblin and its mount, Han beheads the goblin and splits the mount in two, then rushing to the exposed magician, pulling her out of harm's way to her annoyance. But Han calls her a handful, baffled that she can't cast without any form of defense. She argues back, but he moves on, telling everyone to change locations. Dragging her behind him, he tells her to cast as soon as they reach the forest. Ioko continues to complain, but Han kicks her toward the forest, telling her she can't be treated badly if she dies. Then he faces their pursuers, entering a berserk state in order to buy time for the others. They attack him with hit and run tactics, leaving Han only able to dodge and block. Deciding this needs to change, he targets their mobility, slashing through their mounts, but outnumbered, he gets caught off guard by one of the raiders, ending his berserk state and pitting him under the claw of its mount. About to be ran through, he manages to free himself, shoving his sword through the mount and into the goblin. Now surrounded, Aaron tries to come to his aid, but Han stops him, saying he'll lure them away and he should deal with those that come his way. Jenna yells that the preparation is done, and Han retreats with two raiders on his trail. Dodging their strikes, he jumps, somersaulting through the air before kicking off a goblin's face and charging with his shield up, screaming at the raiders to get lost. Seeing her spell complete, Han jumps to the floor, evading the raiders, and Ioko finally activates her spell with the command Ignite. A massive swirl of fire emanates from her, and then a burning pillar of flames launches forward, incinerating everything in its path, including the raiders over Han's head. In the ember-lit forest, Jenna and Aaron admire the power of magic. Han gets to his feet, seeing the remaining raiders still charging in, and orders the two to give him a hand, finishing them off. Clashing with a goblin, Han is shocked at his failing strength due to his low stamina, but uses skill instead to put it off balance before an arrow tunnels through its skull and a flanking raider gets stabbed through by Aaron's spear. Turning to see his two allies, proudly boasts that if he's tired, they'll protect him. Leaping forward, Jenna pulls out her daggers, repeatedly stabbing a goblin in the face, wrestling it off its mount. Ioko prepares to cast again, and from the ground, Jenna, with a goblin locked in her legs, pierces the eye of the mount, heading for the mage. With Ioko about to cast, Jenna warns Han and Aaron to retreat. Flames in her eyes, Ioko clenches her flaming fist with the command Burn, unleashing a powerful AoE strike, resulting in huge explosions as our boys jump out of range. A fierce wave of heat and debris spreads through the forest as rocks and dirt bash against Han's shield. Seeing the resulting hellscape, Han wonders if it's over, but yet another raider bursts through the flames, stunning Han. Hands up, with flames raising around her, Ioko begins another spell, Transcend, sucking in all the surrounding flames into a spiraling twister, reaching the clouds above. So powerful that Jenna is left clinging to a tree to resist the pull. Ioko stands alone before the thick pillar of flame as she stares at the aftermath, while sweat drips down the shocked face of Han with his shield still raised. Clearing the stage, Aaron and Ioko level up, and Aaron and Jenna praise the overwhelming power of Ioko's magic, with her happily laughing, saying I told you, you'll all be surprised, before reeling back with an explosive nosebleed collapsed on the ground. Seeing her mana depleted state, Han notes her obvious weaknesses, but acknowledges that her glass cannon skill set is rare, and power is useful. Returning to the base, thinking he may soon not need to be the center of the party anymore. The next day, anything built the magic hall, with the training groups, magic research lab, alchemy lab, and library combining to make it. Ioko complains to Han, hard of breath, as they run around the training field, with Han noting that the training she has to do is nothing compared to what he does. Seeing anything log off, Han tells Jenna to make sure Ioko doesn't run away before heading off. Inside the magic hall for the first time, he looks around, picking up a book, but he's unable to read it. As such, he decides to start up a minigame to make potions. It's a rhythm game, and with perfect accuracy, he successfully makes a bunch of low-grade health potions. Estelle praises the greatness of Loki, and Han thinks anything might get suspicious, but it's better than dying. The next day, Han meets Jenna and Aaron in front of a brazier of scorching hot coal. He tells them to watch closely and plunges his hand into the brazier to their shouts of concern. Smiling like a maniac, Han tells them that if Iorka uses fire, they need to get used to it, holding his hand in the burning brazier for 10 seconds as the two grimace at his actions. With his hand out of the heat, it heals thanks to the system, and he tells them that they'll be doing this until they can endure it. He then grabs a dagger, stabbing it through his hand with a smile, informing Aaron that he'll need to do something like this until he gains pain resistance, telling Jenna that she doesn't need to, but will have to in the future. He then says that she'll instead learn switching that will allow her to quickly switch from bow to dagger, so she can help protect Iorka, as it's the only way to protect the glass cannon. Back in his room, he thinks party 2 will be sent to floor 9, so they won't fight again till floor 10, where at least 2 parties will participate. As such, he needs to prepare thoroughly and begins the brutal training, screaming and cursing through the night before obtaining the heat resistance skill. The next day, in the training field, he confronts Iorka again, telling her to improve her casting speed and mana consumption, even at the cost of power. Insulted, she argues back, but Han stares her down, asking if she won't, and she caves, walking off in a huff. Iorka is a class 3-5 magician, meaning she can use ignition, explosion, and direct and modify the explosion. With the higher the class used, the more mana consumed. Moving on, he starts his and Jenna's training, sparring, with her shooting arrows at him. He cuts the arrows down mid-flight, armed only with a sword, unlocking the skill projectile defense, and leveling his beginner sword shield technique to level 6. Jenna rushes in with her daggers out, attempting to slash Han's face, but he deftly leans back to avoid the strike. She quickly grabs and notches an arrow, dagger now in mouth, and the two face off, bow drawn and sword extended, with Han astonished at her growth, thinking she would have been underdeveloped if not for his knowledge of the game. He compliments her skill, and Jenna teases him since he said no compliments during training earlier, and Han tugs on her face like a grandma, playfully threatening her. On the other hand, Aaron is a normal 1-star. Though his spearmanship is level 3, it's the only skill he has, and he's still holed up in his room to learn pain resistance, whilst Iorka is in the magic hall training the way Han told her to, with Han thinking it'll be best if she just uses class 1 magic bar special cases. The next day, Edis's party returned from the 9th floor, battered and bruised. Han converses with Edis over what happened, and she explains they faced 50 goblins and the ground was muddy, like it had rained a lot. Next, Party 1 is called upon by anything, and we see them return unscathed, with Iorka leveling up and earning MVP, now level 4, whilst Han is level 10, Jenna level 8, and Aaron level 6. The party has improved equipment now, with D-rank iron plating for armor, and Aaron and Han gaining daggers as support weapons. Additionally, 2 others from the training hall were added to each party, filling them out. The next day, both parties gather where the crack in time and space appears. Anything can either choose to enter the 10th floor now or wait a bit longer, with Han thinking that the newest party member is yet to adjust, and he still hasn't been promoted despite reaching his limit as a 1-star. But anything chooses the former, and his cell opens the gap between time and space. Han thinking this is just a game for him, and he can always get more heroes if they get annihilated. He tells his cell to inform anything to bring some of the items in the storeroom, and she sends the master a tip. Han then splits the 6 health potions, handing Edis 3 and cracking a joke. He tells her to head to the center of the area. They are separated upon entry, before turning to the warrior cell, declaring he will make sure they climb the tower. They arrive in a city of panic-stricken people who can't see or hear them, but they can interact with them, proven by Han kicking a frightened man. Looking around, Aaron and Han realize this is the city that was ruined on floor 5, but now is the time before it was destroyed. Settling his party down, Han orders them to spread out and scout for info, since the mission is yet to be revealed. Atop a bell tower, Han looks out to see thousands of goblins with siege towers more than 10 times the size of the human army standing guard outside the city walls. Returning to the meeting point, Han finds both his and Edis's party gathered. Then, 3 warning pings signifying the highest difficulty appear, stunning Han, and the mission to defend the city and stop its fall is revealed. They share intel, with Aaron saying the refugees are heading to the city center and the goblins are coming from the north and east. Then Han explains that their mission is to defend the city and protect the twin goddesses statue, as its destruction will result in failure and instant death for all of them, so they can't simply retreat. Despite the massive numbers disadvantage, if they can stall or stop the siege towers, they can buy enough time. So Han orders Edis's party to go to the north wall and destroy the towers, but Edis is unwilling, thinking even if they buy time, they'll eventually get overrun. But trying to decipher a path to victory, Han runs through the hints from the lower floors, thinking of the river, collapsed dam, and heavy rain, trying to link the clues. Then Jenna comes to a realization, remembering she heard the sound of horses beyond the river on floor 7. This clicks it all together for Han, and he pulls Jenna's cheek for not speaking up sooner. This time he confidently tells Edis to buy them as much time as possible, no matter how tough it gets, until they can return, and Edis accepts the role, saying his party will have it rougher, so they'll do their best. On floor 7, the dam had already collapsed, so if what Jenna heard was reinforcements, then the reason the city fell on floor 5 was because the reinforcements couldn't cross the river, so their role is to fight through the goblins to the east and stop the collapse of the dam. Party 1 sets off, rushing to the outer wall, with Han giving orders to Jenna to scout from above, Aaron to open the gate, and Ayoka to cast as soon as it opens. The troops at the gate panic, seeing the gate opening, and head over to stop it, whilst Jenna reports the horde gathered right outside the gate. Han and Jenna stop the troops reaching Aaron, whilst Ayoka begins casting her spell. As the gate cracks open, an arrow flies through toward her, but Han catches it mid-air and sends it right back to where it came. Rain begins to fall, and Han worries if it will affect her flames. But with the gate open, the goblins rush in, and she unleashes her blazing spell, decimating the charging horde, then making it explode outside the gate, catching countless enemies in the blast zone. Ayoka recharges with a mana potion, Han asking if she can keep it up, and she confidently replies, "Who do you take me for?" Turning back to the newbie, yet to step forward, he asks if he plans to follow them, but seeing him fall into a state of fear, he tells him to go to Edis and that he'll acknowledge him if he's still alive after the fight. No longer obstructed, the troops close the gate, and Han walks through, facing the horde. With a shout from Han, Party 1 form up, and he tells Ayoka to focus on casting to multiple areas, even if it's at the cost of power, and she confirms. With the rain getting heavier, the goblins pass through the fires, charging toward them. Counting down the 20-second cast time, Han faces the goblins head on, cutting them apart and protecting Ayoka from their bolts. Aaron thrusts his spear through them, and Jenna switches between her daggers and bow, slaughtering them with both. Aaron almost gets flanked, but Han saves him, throwing his dagger into its head, then changing formations as Ayoka unleashes her ignite spell, spewing out flames on the horde, opening a path for them to move forward. But with the flames extinguished under the rain, the horde comes forth again, and Han gives orders as he cuts apart the enemies before him. They hold for another 20 seconds, and Ayoka unleashes her flames again, cutting open a path for them to run through. Prepare to repeat this brutal process over and over to break through the eastern horde and reach the dam. If you enjoyed the vid, like, sub, and comment below. Peace.